The day Boston drowned in the Great Molasses Flood. It sounds like a joke from a dark cartoon, a tsunami of sticky brown syrup, crushing buildings, tossing horses like toys, and drowning people in the streets. But on a cold January afternoon in 1919, this was no joke. It was one of the strangest industrial disasters in American history. In the heart of Boston, a 50-foot wave of molasses exploded onto the streets, moving at 35 miles per hour. It destroyed everything in its path. This is the story of how a tank built on greed turned a city into a sticky graveyard. The ticking bomb. The year was 1919. World War I had just ended, and America was on the brink of prohibition, the ban on alcohol. In Boston's North End, a massive steel tank loomed over the crowded immigrant neighborhood. It was owned by the Purity Distilling Company. Inside, it held 2.3 million gallons of molasses. This wasn't the molasses you put on pancakes. This was industrial sludge, thick and heavy, destined to be fermented into ethanol for explosives or rum. The tank was a disaster waiting to happen. It had been built quickly and cheaply to maximize profits. It leaked so badly that neighborhood children would run up to it with cups to collect the sweet goo dripping from the rivets. Instead of fixing the leaks, the company simply painted the tank brown so the leaks wouldn't be visible to the public. The tank groaned. It creaked. People complained that it sounded like a beast trying to escape. The owners ignored them. The explosion. January 15th, 1919, 12:40 p.m. The weather had been unusually warm for winter, causing the molasses inside to ferment and expand. The pressure inside the tank was building like a shaken soda bottle. Suddenly, a sound like machine gun fire ripped through the air. Rat-tat-tat-tat. It was the rivets popping out of the steel plates. Then, the earth shook. The tank didn't just leak, it disintegrated. The steel walls peeled open, and a 2.3 million gallon wall of molasses was unleashed upon the city. The brown tsunami. We tend to think of molasses as slow. Slow as molasses in January is the old saying. But this molasses wasn't slow. Because of the sheer mass and gravity, the wave hit the streets, traveling at 35 miles per hour. It was 25 feet high initially, crashing down with the force of a freight train. The destruction was biblical. Buildings. The wave hit the local firehouse, knocking it completely off its foundation. The firefighters inside were trapped. The train. It swam into the elevated railway tracks, twisting the steel girders like pretzels. A train car was nearly tipped off the tracks into the goo below. The victims. People didn't have a chance to run. They were engulfed. The molasses was heavy, much heavier than water. If you were hit by it, you didn't swim, you were crushed. Pasquale Iantosca, a 10-year-old boy, was collecting firewood near the tank. The wave hit him instantly. He didn't survive. The sticky trap. When the wave finally settled, the horror truly began. The streets were covered in a layer of molasses 2 to 3 feet deep. In basements, it was waist high. But here is the terrifying part about molasses. It is a non-Newtonian fluid. When people tried to rescue the victims, the more they thrashed, the deeper they sank. It was like quicksand, but sticky. Horses were the most tragic sight. Dozens of horses from nearby stables were trapped in the goo. They were panicked, thrashing and sinking. The police eventually had to shoot the horses because they couldn't be pulled out. Rescuers, sailors from a nearby ship, police and civilians waded into the sludge, but they got stuck too. As the sun went down, the cold winter air began to cool the molasses, turning it from a liquid into a hard, rubbery solid, trapping victims inside like insects in amber. The aftermath. It took weeks to clean the city. Fireboats sprayed salt water, fresh water wouldn't wash it away, to dissolve the goo. The harbor turned brown for months. Every doorknob, every phone booth, and every streetcar in Boston was sticky. The toll. 21 people died, 150 were injured. The neighborhood was flattened. The Purity Distilling Company tried to blame anarchists and terrorists, claiming someone blew up the tank, but the investigation proved that the tank was structurally unsound. The steel was too thin. The architect hadn't even checked the math. This event led to the first major class action lawsuit in Massachusetts history against a corporation. The victims won. It changed American engineering standards forever. From that day on, architects had to actually prove their structures wouldn't explode. The ghostly smell. For decades after the flood, Bostonians claimed that on hot summer days, you could still smell the faint, sweet scent of molasses rising from the pavement in the North End. It remains one of the weirdest disasters in history, a tragedy that sounds ridiculous until you realize that something as sweet as syrup can be as deadly as a bomb.